Just had your NHS hearing aids fitted? Feeling pretty overwhelmed? Well, that is cool. I get it. There is a lot of information to retain. But don't worry, I've got you now, and I promise to make you an expert on your brand new Oticon Sage Mini BT hearing aids by the end of today's video. So, let's get hands on. So this is the NHS's Oticon Sage hearing aid, and it comes in two different styles. Yours may well look like this, which is the more common slim tube setup, also known as a Corda mini fit, but it might also have something like this attached, which is a sound hook and ear mold attachment. Everything that I'm about to share in today's video applies to both of these styles. So I'm going to start today by running through the basics, which is what I would cover in all of my hearing aid fitting appointments in clinic. Firstly, this is the unit that sits behind your ear. You'll notice multiple openings, which are the microphone ports, allowing sound into your hearing aid from all directions. It's important to make sure that they're always clean, as I often see them filled with dead skin and debris, but I'll come on to maintenance in a lot more detail later on in today's video. Moving down, this is a push button which is raised so it's easy to find behind your ear. It's technically a soft key, meaning that its function can change and it can be programmed to do a range of different things, from changing programs to adjusting your volume, muting the hearing aids, and even answering phone calls. It's set by your audiologist, so you should work together to determine the best settings for you, your lifestyle, and your specific hearing loss. Oticon's default setting is that with a quick press of the left hearing aid, it turns both hearing aids down, and a quick press of the right hearing aid and it turns both of your hearing aids up. When I say both hearing aids, I mean that you can press either your left or your right hearing aid and it will adjust the sound in your opposite ear too. Just above the push button, there is an LED which indicates your hearing aid status, and again, I'll cover that in more detail later on in today's video. Then right at the bottom is the battery door, which houses the battery, and then this coloured marker, which is indicative of whether it's your left or your right hearing aid. Your left hearing aid will show as a blue marker, and your right hearing aid will show as a red marker. Do make sure that you get this right, as you may get the opposite hearing aid in the wrong ear, but it won't stay in for very long. Then if we keep travelling around here, you'll see the slim tube. With this style of hearing aid, the sound is generated within the body of the hearing aid itself and then travels down this tubing into your ear. On the end of the hearing aid, you may well have an open dome, base dome, power dome, grip tip, or micro mould, depending on your hearing loss. And then last, but by no means least, we have this incredibly important grip tip, also known as a sports or retention lock. In my opinion, these are essential to keep your hearing aid locked in place in your ear. So if you don't have one on your hearing aid, then I would definitely ask your audiologist to add one for you. And don't chop it off, as this small piece of plastic can mean the difference between scrambling around on the floor looking for a lost hearing aid or otherwise. So that's the physical side of things covered. Now let's cover batteries. Realistically, you'll get around 5 to 10 days worth of life from each of these Oticon hearing aid batteries, which is pretty standard for the size 312 battery that they use. If you ever have an emergency and you need to buy batteries on the spot, then you can find them in a universally coloured brown packet. However, you should be able to pick them up for free from your local NHS department, and they'll hand you the correct size for your individual hearing loss. Now, I say between 5 to 10 days because battery life is significantly affected the more that you use your hearing aids with your phone. So if you're big on streaming, which I'll come on to later, then you'll find that their life is significantly reduced to the lower end of that time scale. To change the battery, simply open the battery door by feeling for this raised part on the bottom just here, and then give it a pull, which requires a small amount of force. It does help, I find, if you can get your fingernail underneath there. You'll then see the battery happily sat waiting to be changed. I would recommend placing your finger underneath and then lifting it towards you, which should dislodge the battery from its current position. You can return this battery back to your audiology department for recycling. Finally, grab your replacement packet, peel off the sticker, wait for 2 whole minutes, which I won't do now because that would be rather boring for you to watch, and then insert the battery. If you inspect it closely, you'll notice one side of the battery is flush and the other has a ring around it. You want the ring, which is the negative side, facing downwards and the flush side facing towards you. When it's in, then close the battery door. I have a couple of points on this. So firstly, it is possible to insert your battery upside down. However, you won't be able to successfully close the battery door, so don't force it. It should close smoothly and easily. And if you're getting any resistance, check that it's the right way up. And then secondly, if possible, don't skip the 2-minute wait after you remove the battery sticker. It is one of the biggest causes of bad battery life complaints that I come across with disposable hearing aid batteries. If you're wondering, how will I know when to change the battery? Don't worry, I've got you again. The first indication is if there's no sound coming out of your hearing aid, fairly obvious. So if there's no sound when you put the hearing aid in your ear. So if, for example, you put your hearing aid in one day and you don't hear either the startup jingle or any sound in the world around you, then it's a good idea or a good indication that you need to change your battery. Alternatively, if whilst you're wearing your hearing aid, you hear 3 alternating beeps, then your battery is running low and you'll have around 15 minutes to change it. So don't ignore it. If it were me, I would change it straight away. And then finally, if you hear 4 descending beeps, then the battery will be finished completely. Depending on how your hearing aids are set, you may well also see a continuous orange LED blinking on the back of your hearing aid, and your Bluetooth will turn off to save power. Now, before we move on, I've got a secret to share with you. Come here, in fact, come here, come a bit closer. You are going to be so shocked to hear that 75% of people watching these videos haven't yet hit the subscribe button. So I've got a huge favour to ask from you. It's down here somewhere. If you've ever enjoyed my videos, then please press this subscribe button. It helps me out more than I can say, and it helps the channel to grow. And the bigger that this channel gets, the better the videos will get. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of today's video. Now, moving on from my shameful plug, turning on and off your hearing aids could not be easier. Simply close the battery door to turn them on, and you'll see 3 green blinks, and then to turn them off, open it up as I showed you earlier. Simple. In a world of rechargeable hearing aids, disposable batteries may feel old school, but they're still incredibly reliable, especially for people who don't want another thing to charge. As I covered earlier, Oticon's push button is multifunctional and can perform various tasks depending on how you agree it should be set with your audiologist. So not only can it adjust the volume, but it can also change your programs. It can even be used to answer, drop, or decline. Yes, you can reject phone calls using it. Alternatively, you can have it do nothing at all if you would prefer. So I would recommend having a chat with your audiologist and deciding the best setup for you. Pairing your hearing aids with your phone opens up 2 epic features. Firstly, you can use the Oticon companion app to adjust your hearing aid settings. And then secondly, it also allows you to stream the radio, music, podcasts, and phone calls, in fact, any media, directly from your phone to your hearing aids. For me, this is an absolute must, although I do have a handful of patients that are not interested in these features whatsoever, so it's worth knowing that it isn't essential for the functioning of your hearing aids. To set this up, head over to the settings menu on your phone and scroll down to accessibility, then scroll down until you come across hearing devices. Next, open and close the battery door. This will turn them on and off and put them into a pairing mode for 60 seconds. Finally, at the top of your screen, your hearing aid should appear. When you press them, this will prompt you to pair, and then you're good to go. Once you're paired, head over to Google Play or the App Store and download the Oticon companion app to be able to make changes to the settings on your hearing aid using your phone. If you're pretty safety conscious and you want to make sure that your hearing aids are in flight mode when you're heading on holiday, then hold your push button for 7 seconds. You'll hear a jingle and then a few descending tones. This will disable your Bluetooth, so you won't have a connection with your phone, but your hearing aids will still work as usual. And then to disable flight mode, repeat this process, or alternatively, just open and close the battery door. If for whatever reason you want to mute your hearing aids, you can hold down either your left or your right button for 4 seconds, and then both hearing aids will stop producing sound. It's worth noting that this can also be done when you've downloaded the Oticon companion app. All hearing aids have an element of cleaning involved due to the hostile, waxy environment that they live in on a daily basis. And there are 3 main parts that I want you to keep an eye on. I recommend to all of my patients that a quick daily check is necessary, which involves wiping your hearing aids with a lint-free cloth or a tissue, especially if you notice a buildup of wax on them. Secondly, if you notice the sound is getting a little bit muffled, it might be time to clear out your slim tubes. Your audiologist should have provided you with a little tool which looks like this. To use it, you'll need to remove the hearing aid from the tubing like so, and then thread it down the center. Then repeat the process in reverse to reattach your tubing. The last thing that I would recommend to do to keep your hearing aids working is to also clean the microphone ports. This is all done using the small brush that your audiologist should have provided, and periodically brush over these microphones if you can see a buildup of debris over them. Now, I hope that this video gives you the tools that you need to start out with your new Oticon hearing aids, but I want to make this process even easier if possible. And so next, I'd recommend watching this video, which runs through that pairing process that I was talking about before.